Just, I wanted to add this. She'll be talking about the children of Russia with you, and you'll love that. Carolyn has 2 grown daughters, no grandkids yet. She loves to fish for salmon, so we all like that. And she likes to watch the stars in the bottom of her champagne glass. I'd like to introduce Carolyn Jones.
Thank you very much, Rusty, for that elegant introduction. I'm not sure if it was as short as I would have liked, but I thank you for all the kind things that you said. I bring you greetings from District 5010. My district includes 3 countries, Russia, Canada, and the U.S. We speak 3 languages, Russian, English, and Canadian, The district covers 11 time zones and 5,000 miles. And from the Yukon Territory to the Ural Mountains, we are the largest district in the Rotary world, nay, in the galaxy. And a more modest bunch of people you could never hope to meet. The story I'm going to tell you tonight, actually I've been telling for 13 years. It evolves. And it's hard to believe it's been 13 years, but let's begin at the beginning. It was in 1997 when a group of Rotarians from the US, Canada, and Australia went to Western Siberia to charter 4 Rotary clubs. Now, you need to appreciate the significance of chartering Rotary clubs in 1997 in Russia. When the communists went out the door and turned off the lights, people like us here in the U.S., we patted ourselves on the back because we'd struck a blow for democracy, and we went about our merry way. You know, after World War II, there were several pieces of congressional legislation passed to help Germany and Japan, our then enemies, get back on their feet and become the vibrant democracies that they are today. We didn't do any of that with Russia. We just ignored them and went on our way. But the problem was equally difficult because suddenly they went from being a communist government to a what do we do next? Truly, you cannot understand what it was like. They had no way of bringing in revenue. Nobody was cleaning the streets, repairing the houses, maintaining the airplanes. It was chaos. And really, there was no time to set up a committee to think about this. Now, the Russians that I came to know realized they had 3 choices. They could have gone back to communism. I mean, it had worked more or less for 70 years. Or there was another infrastructure waiting in the wings to take over Russia. We call it the mafia. Neither one of those 2 solutions was palatable. And then we came along for some of these Russians who wanted the best for their country. Think about us globally. 1.2 million business and professional women around the world. We have a code of ethics. We have a 4-way test. We have a foundation. We know how and are willing to roll up our sleeves and do a job and get a job done. And so these new Rotarians were so thrilled to have a chance to finally belong to Rotary that when we got to the first 3 cities, they literally rolled out the red carpet. The mayors were there, the TV cameras were stuck in our faces, they overfed us, and they gave us an obscene amount of vodka to drink. So when I got to the final stop in Tomsk, I really expected nothing more than this. It's been a rolling slumber party with my best friends and a designated driver. And instead, my host said, "Carolyn, would you take 15 minutes out of your busy schedule? I want to introduce you to the first Rotary project of the Rotary Club of Tomsk." And it was that chance request and my agreement that led to what now has become known as the story of the children of Russia. Tomsk is right next door to Seversk. It's still a closed city because there's a nuclear power plant there. And there had been several radiation leaks. And the doctors had seen so many kids coming into the hospital with leukemia and other forms of cancer of the blood. Well, they had a good chemo program. It had an 80% success rate. But in 1997, the hospitals had not received their national stipend from the national government for over 14 months. And while the doctors had always been willing to reach into their own pocket to help make up a shortfall, they hadn't had a salary in 14 months. So the kids were literally going to die unless there was a plan B. And that's where the Rotary Club came in. So I like to think of myself as a good Rotarian, but the truth is, it was not my idea of a good time to go to a hospital and see kids who were dying, who were sick, who maybe had lost their hair. But I said, okay, I'll go. And in the car, riding to the hospital, I kept saying, be strong, Carolyn. Be strong and do not cry. The last thing these kids need is to see a grown woman cry. So we did get to the hospital, and the doctors first explained, their procedures and what they were trying to do and the struggles, and then they took me to see the kids. And it was true. There were 5 kids there at the time, and they were very sick. One was so sick that he could only follow me with his eyes. But the other kids came to the doorways to look at me, and I wished at that moment that I had brought them something, but I didn't know I was going there. Didn't have candy, didn't have fruit. But I reached into the bottom of my purse and pulled out my district governor cards. And these cards, I'm in a bright red jacket and a great big smile, and I gave one to each kid. And they looked at the card, and they looked at me, and they held it to their hearts, and they smiled. And I knew then that I was a Rotary trading card, and that I was worth a lot. So I didn't cry yet, and I hadn't disgraced us, and I thought I was home free and I was going to get out of there, but I forgot about the mothers. For every one of these children, the mother had moved into the hospital because there was a shortage of hospital staff, and now the mothers came out to me, and through the translator, it basically, essentially all said the same thing. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. That was a moment, because I told you I didn't want to go there. And while I was there, part of me was thinking, I still have to go to the charter ceremony tonight, shake the wrinkles out of my dress, put some curls in my hair. And these mothers think that I'm here for a serious purpose. They think I'm going to tell the story of their children outside of the 4 walls of this hospital, and that because of me, their children will live. And of the 6 of us, I'm the only one who knew that that wasn't going to happen. Well, I went to the charter ceremony that night. I told the other Rotarians what I'd seen, and I said, if we could just scrape together $5,000, we could buy the chemo medicine for these kids. And I thought to myself, whoa, okay, I've done the job. 6 weeks now I'm going to be district governor. I can wash my hands of this. I've got a plan. I've got things to do, and, move on. But that's what I'd seen. Those kids, those mothers got their hooks into me. And I found myself telling everybody over the next week my story. And they would tell me other stories about children. And it was so clear in just 1 week that the children of Russia, the first generation with a chance to grow up outside of the shadow of communism, the children of Russia were in crises. They were sick. They were abandoned. They were being sold. They were dying. They were homeless. They were poorly educated. And that is how this story all began, the story of the children of Russia. It all began with a human connection between 5 mothers, 5 children, and 1 reluctant Rotarian. And I went to my clubs, and by 6 weeks, in July 1st when I became governor, we had launched this program to finance foundation matching grant projects in the 22 communities in eastern Russia. And by the end of the year, 132 Rotary clubs in 19 districts in 5 nations and the Rotary Foundation had raised over $620,000 to finance 30 matching grant projects. We bought sewing machines for vocational rehabilitation. We bought incubators. We bought wheelchairs. We bought dialysis machines. And yes, we even bought chemotherapy. And then my year was over. And once again, I thought I could wash my hands and move on. It's somebody else's turn. It was such a nice closure to send in that last matching grant application. But I hadn't counted on one of those 132 clubs that came to me and said, Carolyn, we would like to support one of these projects, not just this one time only, but we want to support Eagle's Nest Orphanage in Tomsk. We can't bring those children to the U.S. and find them families, but maybe we can make a difference in their lives and change their destiny. And so this one club wrote the next chapter in the story of the children of Russia. And the kids that I'm going to introduce you to now are from Eagle's Nest Orphanage, but they truly represent the children of Russia. There are stories of children like baby Lena, who, when she was born, her mother was so distressed about having one more mouth to feed, one more family, she put baby Lena in a box, put the box in a river, and pushed it from shore. Passerby saw what happened, rescued baby Lena. She went to a baby home for a few years and eventually found her way to Eagle's Nest to be with her sisters. There are children whose mother will go off for 3 weeks and leave 6 children locked in an apartment by themselves. The neighbors realize something's wrong because there are no footprints in the snow. And when the authorities broke down the door, they found 6 children in various stages of medical distress. The infant died, the oldest brother, and is raised by his grandmother, and these 4 children came to Eagle's Nest to grow up. I've told this story hundreds of times, and it never gets any easier to tell this portion. These are the girls for whom the nights hold only fear because of the boyfriends, the stepfathers, and sometimes even the fathers in their lives. And there's even one family grouping where, as toddlers, 2 of them sat on the living room floor and watched their father murder their mother. These are the stories of the children of Russia. And one club took over the orphanage and immediately began sending emergency winter boots, winter clothing, cross-country skis for the little kids. And then one year, in partnership with 3 other clubs, they bought a school bus for the kids. And the old bus had caught on fire just 8 days earlier while kids were on board. Another year, they partnered with 3 other clubs and got another matching grant from the foundation, and they replaced the entire water system so that there was a water treatment facility and clean, safe, pure water for the kids. So they met the emergency needs first. But they wanted to know what they could do next, and they learned that the little kids, those first years, they didn't get what this young man here got in the audience. There was nobody who read them stories, who taught them to count on their fingers, who taught them their ABCs, who held them. And they would arrive at the orphanage developmentally delayed. But when it's time to start public school in Russia, if you're not on the same level playing field with the other kids, you risk being misdiagnosed. You risk a Russian doctor saying you are retarded. And if that happens, that child gets sent to an institution where all of the other children have that same diagnosis. There's no mainstreaming. And they stay there till they're 18, and then they get transferred to an adult facility where everyone has that same diagnosis. So in order to break that pattern at this orphanage, this club got a Rotary volunteer grant and a matching grant and sent a volunteer for 1 month. And she worked with the children and the caregivers in a type of Head Start program and taught them how to count, how to develop their motor skills, how to get in touch with their creative side. But if you ask them what mattered the most to them, they will all tell you that it was that from the time they got up until the time they went to bed, they had a person that they could call their own. Well, she went back and she told her club what she was doing, and they were all so excited that they would say, the next time you go, take me. Meet the 2001 team to Tomsk and the 2006 team to Tomsk. They have learned to use the Rotary Foundation grant system with a new opportunity grant, matching grants, Rotary volunteer grants, individual grants, personal funds, and $30,000 in in-kind contributions. They went to Tomsk. Sue's a nurse. She taught health care, dental care, nutrition. And on this day, at the request of the director, she gave a class in the birds and the bees, as evidenced by the rapt looks and the dropped jaws on the faces of the girls. The local government donated 5 sewing machines, and 2 of our volunteers taught knitting and embroidery and crocheting and sewing. And by the end of the class, the students were able to make clothing for themselves and their siblings. And in 2006, they made 2 quilts, which the team brought back and auctioned off to Rotarians for $6,000, money which then went back to Tomsk. Well, the original volunteer can always find some children to work with. And these kids, they think they're playing, and they don't realize that those toys are cleverly helping them develop such things as their hand-eye coordination and their memory skills. In 2006, 5 Rotary clubs in the Pacific Northwest donated laptop computers. The team members hand-carried them there, taught computer classes, and left the computers behind. There's now a daily schedule so that the kids from each apartment have access to these laptop computers. Well, we always take guys in the program, and the guys say, well, okay, we're going to do all these good things and these improving things, but it is summer, Carolyn. So we have a recreational program, and for the first time ever, anywhere in the state of Tomsk, we introduced baseball. And this being October, you know that every baseball season ends with a World Series. The gold team won. Although I'm from Alaska and you think of us as one giant ice cube, people do golf. And the guys decided that they had to teach the kids how to play golf. So they lugged a whole bag of golf clubs over there, all lengths, and taught golf to any kids who were interested. And for those of you who do play golf, never again complain about your putting green. Well, the recreational program isn't simply about building strong minds and healthy bodies. It isn't just about fun and killing time. If you're an athlete, or your kids or grandkids are athletes, you know that there are certain intangibles you get from sports. Intangibles that these kids haven't ever gotten from their parents. How to win with grace. How to lose, but you have to pick yourself up and start all over again. How to map out a strategy for success. How to support your team when things aren't going well. And you learn also, if you give it your absolute best, you will enjoy the sweet rewards of success. One of our Rotarians is an artist, and he decided he wanted to empower the children through art.